I played Mixtape.
Oh boy.
Which you probably heard about. It's a short narrative game that has generated no small amount of culture war controversy. That's why you probably heard of it. If not for having seen the trailer at some point. As always, I check out of that sort of thing, the culture war stuff. If I feel inclined to play a game, I am open to feeling however I feel about it without any, internet's breathing down my neck about how they feel about it. I guess this case is kind of interesting because it's not just the usual offended crowd, but people suspicious of the effusive praise that the game got from most review outlets when it came out. They was seeing like a whole suite of 10 out of 10s and 9 out of 10s, and people were like, rigged, paid off, yada yada. I don't know. But when we first saw the trailer for this one, in one of the showcases, I was definitely the only one saying, yeah, I'm probably gonna play this. I guess it's because I'm like a mark for nostalgia bait or anything strongly infused with music, which this of course is. So what did I think of Mixtape? Up front, I will say it absolutely is a 90s disaffected teen nostalgia core coming of age interactive animated movie where everything is its rose tinted remembered version, and the teens always have the perfect try hard quips despite their nonchalance. They always got it. Something right in the chamber. So if that doesn't appeal to someone, that's very understandable. It's a particular brand of thing. It took spending some time with the game to get over my initial eye-rolling distaste for that tone. But I did. You acclimate to it, or I did. But if you can get past that, there is stuff to like. It's a good-looking game, I think. Mostly like the well-curated environments and lighting. I think that's all good. The low frame animation of the characters is a subjective taste thing. I found it unnecessary, not necessary, kind of distracting. But
I've hated it every time I've seen a clip of the game, but I also contextualize that with I think those things do genuinely feel different when it's in your hands versus video sometimes.
And I will say, I got used to it pretty quick. It's just like, that's why I say unnecessary and not bad, because it's like, it's a choice of style, and you get used to it. But like, did they need to do that? No. Would it have been less distracting if they just had them at the same frame rate as the rest of the game? It would have been fine. It wouldn't have been any less appealing. But the music is, of course, the main feature, and it has a lot of good licensed music. It's going to be subjective as to whether you enjoy the soundtrack, because it's a particular genres of music. But the whole game is the mixtape, the soundtrack playing scene by scene as you relive exaggerated memories of teen life. So the songs, I like the songs. They play to some like vaguely interactive scenes, heightened by magical realism and cinematic coded production. So, for instance, there's one montage that's like a Wayne's World Bohemian Rhapsody scene, except the car that they're driving in is in front of a rear projection of city streets, and you could see that it's like sitting in a studio during the montage. So that like this is playing with the reality of the situation the whole time. I would say there's ideas and enjoyment to be found in those. The game certainly has style. And it is essentially a music video playlist telling a continuous little story. What it isn't is somehow morally dubious, because it has a briefly playable scene of teen tongues obscenely making out.
I've seen that. I've seen that GIF.
Which you will have seen, yes. First of all, are we really that prudish that we're just like you can't have that in a whatever? second, more importantly, the game itself treats it as viscerally unflattering and like best forgotten in context, which is why you control it. It's like supposed to be gross and weird, and it's to get across a point. So if it were to be framed as romance, I don't think it would be the insides of mouths. So I don't know. I think in this one, media literacy takes another bullet, because like, of course, nobody knows the context. They're just complaining about something, and why are they complaining? Just because it's like easy to target, I guess. You're supposed to find it unflattering. Anyway, like I said before, I feel like anyone who watches a trailer for Mixtape can already tell whether they're in or not, or whether they have any capacity to tolerate it. I'm here to tell you there aren't any like hidden tricks that make it differently appealing. If only you give it a chance. You already know what the appeal would be. You already know if you'll be cringing.
I've heard of some pretty deep takes that, if anything, there are some things that maybe it's not a take that you ended up having, but like some of the ways the story is presented sort of make the game, what's the word? The story did not sound good from what I heard, is I guess what I'm trying to say. That like what you think this game is from a trailer might end up being better than how it plays. I read one review, I'll see if I can find it and link it to you at some point, that went pretty deep into how the game frames the making of a mixtape, and how I think the argument was basically that the game is like very self-absorbed with the main character, or almost narcissistically so, and at no point, you have a whole slew of characters, and the game is about music, but you never learn like what another guy's mixtape looks like, or what another guy's track looks like. So like by the end of the game, you just kind of have like this monocolor experience of this world from a narcissistic, uninteresting viewpoint. It was a scathing review, but
yeah,
curious how you feel about that.
Games have to have main character. I mean, I didn't play the game and I don't know anything about it, but like, isn't that all games? Like, focus on a main character. No, dude. I
mean, no, not exactly. I mean, there's a main character, but it's like a game about how important music is and how that defines your character. To like have a whole cast of characters and you don't see how music is important to them. You know what I mean? Like I can see that take. I mean, I don't really want to go on about it because I haven't played the game, but
right, same. But to play devil's advocate, music's not important to everybody. So, I mean, and maybe like every character in the game was like, I do love music, and yeah, that would be weird if they didn't show it. But like, I never made a mixtape in my entire life. I don't give a fuck about a mixtape, but
I do have a response to that, I guess. It's kind of a variation of what John's saying, which is that I feel like I don't really know what that reviewer was looking for, because the game is, you're playing as that character, and the game is about her frame of the other characters, and most importantly, she is the mixtape girl. She is the mixtape, like, the known music enjoyer. Music is her entire life. Like, everything she thinks about and does in the world and with her friends is framed by the music that she loves and listens to. She always has headphones on. She turns to music whenever she's emotional about something. And the whole game is presented as her perfect mixtape for a particular like day in the life of her and her friends. Mm-hmm. So it's her songs that are soundtracking her version of the day, so it's like, it's all about her, but that's the point. So it is narcissistic, but that's because it's intentionally framed that way by her. She's doing it.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I wasn't a reviewer. That's totally a fair, appraisal of it.
Yeah,
I could see somebody who was hoping for the game to, have a more, I don't know, worldly take on music in the 90s. Could probably be annoyed at that, but it's not really a fault of the game so much as it's like that's just not what the game is. A taste
right
thing, maybe.
And don't get me wrong, like the story is no great shakes. You know, it's definitely not worldly. It's very much like a fairly sheltered 90s suburban white kid experience. You know, it's like it's a super particular type, like lens through which to see this era. And it's even more particular because of the music. Like, it's what she likes. It's what she is into. And her friends do, like, you know, comment on the music from time to time, and other people in the game, I think, you know, talk about music and like music. But it's definitely like, yeah, it's her framing, it's her thing. And you know, I think the story, I didn't like super connect with it, but I appreciated it for what it was, I suppose. It plays a lot of the tropes that you kind of seen before. To me, it was really more about the style with which it presented them and had you interact with them. That's kind of that's why I guess it is important that it was a game and not an animated movie. Although you could have done some of the gags or gimmicks in an animated movie format, you playing them allows you to more feel like you're, you know, connect to being the one experiencing them.
Interesting.
And so I guess
I'd have the bias that, like, honestly, I was pretty negative on this game from having seen the levels of interactivity, and that it almost looked like insultingly low levels of interactivity, like QTEs where it doesn't matter, and like the game tells you to press a button, but you don't have to, and it's like, I don't know. As a guy who didn't play the game, I very quickly started developing the opinion of, like, oh, so these are guys who would rather have made a movie, but they made a game instead for some reason, and it is what it is.
That's
but
possible,
it's not interesting to me.
Well, that's exactly my point, and that's why I was saying before, like, being very adamant about, like, I think you just looking at the materials before you even play the game will let you know if you're the type of player that would even enjoy this at all, that this would appeal to, both on a gameplay level and on a subject level. You know, I think you know, and so I think you do know, and you're not like that. That's even why I was saying there aren't any hidden tricks. There's not like more to it than you think there is. There's not. It really just takes, you know, knowing that you're the kind of player who can engage or who wants to engage with this type of experience. And then putting yourself, like, meeting it halfway, putting yourself out towards it, and just accepting that it is what it is. And then if you get something from that, that's great. If not, very understandable. And if you don't choose to engage with it in the first place, very understandable. You might it's anywhere from, I don't think this has enough interactivity, to I would cringe at this too hard. I think that is valid. Cool. But as for the review stuff, though, like, you know, the game did get glowing reviews from apparently the exact type of people who were predisposed to enjoy this specific piece of art. You know, I don't know how.
I have pretty deep.
You would give it a 10 out of 10?
I'll be honest. I think I do have some more nuanced take there as far as the reviews go. I'd read quite a bit about this when it came out and saw the culture war happening. And of course, I think there's a lot of chuds involved in this who are saying awful things that don't matter about what this game is, and, you know. But B, I do think reviewers should own the fact that they gave this game, which, like you said, has a very monocolor viewpoint, a 10 out of 10 because it applies specifically to them. And, like, maybe it's kind of an ignorant take. I think if you're a game journalist writing for IGN, it's sort of your job to think outside of yourself in the box and to write a review for the average person. And it's honestly unfortunate to the developers, because I think that in the world where this game got, I don't know what it deserves, let's just say 8, 5, 9, you know, I don't think that this game is noticed in a negative light like it has been. I think, like, it's just it's a self-selection, where this is the kind of game that you'd play and enjoy it, and if you didn't, you just, oh, it's another, you know, non-game I'm not going to play, and move on. But the fact that there was a conversation because the game got an outsized critical reception for what, by all accounts seems like a decent experience that some people are going to find really special, but it's not like it seems a bit disingenuous to give it a 10 out of 10 with a pedigree like IGN and like kind of like stamp it with a seal of approval of like, this game is as, I know the reviews don't work like this, I'm being a bit hyperbolic, but this game is as good as Ocarina of Time. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, come on. I mean, your job is to be a critic. Like you are being paid to think critically. And so that's my annoyance on the 10 out of 10s. I don't care that like, I don't care about the culture war at all. It's just, I noticed that, and I do agree with that I don't think there was any paid conspiracy. I think it's as simple as this is like a 3-hour adventure that really hits some people in the right way. And, game reviewers were able to fully complete and experience it. And then, they had a strong experience. They loved it and they wrote about it. I don't find that, I don't think that they were like, there's a big conspiracy like that. But I do think that, it sort of just shines a light on how bullshit the whole video game critical industry is. Like,
well, yeah, I agree with you on the problem and the effect that it had. I should also mention that I did not pay for this game standalone at $20. I played it along with a bunch of other games on Game Pass. I got a month of Game Pass, and because it had a bunch of games that I wanted to play, and it would be cheaper to play those games without buying them standalone. So I think if you could do that, it's probably the best way to play this, as you said, 3-hour experience or whatever it is. But I agree, and that's why I don't put that much stock into and don't really like the effect that review scores have and have always had, because it's always been a problem. And number one is it goes back to the ancient problem of like, comparing, I forget what it was, like BioShock Infinite to Party Baby, whatever. It's like, I forget what the games were, but yeah. It's a problem from time immemorial where like Mixtape is not being compared to Pragmata or Subnautica 2. They are not reviewing it in comparison to those, but the scores are inevitably compared to those because it's all the same system from the same outlets. You know what I mean? So it's like putting numbers on it just like presents an expectation that is not fair to anybody because they're just incongruously compared. Yeah, Mixtape is not the same thing. And then the other thing is that like people aren't going to look beyond those scores. So they see the 10 out of 10s and they don't see, if I haven't read the reviews, if there is nuance in there that says more about a critical analysis of Mixtape as a game and like what it brings to the table, who it might be for, most importantly, and like, what you might get out of it if it is for you. All that stuff is hidden behind the barrier of the 10 out of 10 because the reviewer got what they got out of it. They loved it, so they put a big score on it. And then maybe in the review, they said very nuanced opinions that just never make it to like 90% of the people, maybe more than 90% of the people on the internet, because it's so much easier to just look at like the scores for Mixtape versus Subnautica 2 or 007 First Light. So yeah, it's the whole game journalism thing and review thing is like a problem that has been a problem for ever because of that. And Mixtape is just like the latest victim of that, I guess. But it's it's kind of the victim of, I guess, the reviewers not, being political about their scoring. I wouldn't want them to be, but like, do you have to? Because otherwise people are gonna bomb the game.
I think you do. I mean, like, I think it depends on who you are. kind of, and maybe that's kind of a cop out, but like, I don't think me and you have to. We're not being paid to do this. We're just shooting the shit and saying our opinions out loud. Somebody like IGN represents, I'm just throwing out IGN, probably the biggest gaming news outlet out there, and like, there's a pedigree that is associated with being that. Everybody reads the IGNs. There's the IGN 10 out of 10. You know what I mean? That's the thing. And like, knowing that, I do think it is your responsibility to balance your take of the game with that in mind. And like, maybe if we talk to that guy who wrote that, he would double down and stand by his 10 out of 10. Maybe not. But there certainly seems to be an outsized critical versus audience reaction I've seen. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And that's just that guy. There's a bunch of people working for IGN reviewing games who all have different opinions and different methods. And then maybe there's like an IGN house style of like the way to score a game based on how you feel, but it's still subjective.
Like, not to go there, like, I don't know these guys, but like, let's just say probably the guy who wrote this is like a millennial Gen X white dude who grew up in suburban America. I wonder like what, the black Zoomer on the IGN staff thinks of this game. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Especially, and this game suffers more because it's about music, something so personal. You know what I mean? Like there, yeah. I of course I don't love that there's a culture war around it, but as I talk more and more, it's like it's kind of inevitable with what this game is almost.
Mm-hmm. But then maybe like the French player who never experienced 90s suburban teen angst. They're like a Life is Strange lifer, and so they love this shit because it speaks to an experience that they have always loved, like envisioning and vicariously living in. So it's like, it's messy. You never know. But yeah, my ultimate take on Mixtape is it's like, it's not. I don't do review scores. I don't do numbers, but it's as John asked, it's not a 10 out of 10 game for me, but that's just me. And yet I have way more tolerance for this kind of stuff than I think a lot of people would. I think that like almost all you guys would, maybe all you guys, probably the least against this kind of stuff.
I'm more interested in playing it, having heard you said it, because my main reason, above all else, the reason why I wasn't interested is that it looked like a game that had shallow gameplay that was going to keep trying to lie to me to make me think I was playing a game. And I mean, you did call it an animated or like a movie, but like you also did say that there were many games and stuff that were actually fun and interesting to play or helped you connect to it. It does sound like there's perhaps some justification for the interactivity,
Right. Like, I would not lie to you and say there is more activity than there is in there. And it's a low level. And I don't think the game is trying to pull one over on you. It's like it is an interactive animated movie. I think it accepts that that's what it is. And I think if the player can accept that, then they can just either enjoy or not enjoy the ride as it is. And maybe get something out of it, or and you might even dislike the characters. That's perfectly fine. They're not the most likable little teens. It's all subjective. Anywho,
any other thoughts on Mixtape, Flask?
Well, I want more games that really seem to care about music, not just like there's plenty of games that have a great soundtrack or a great score. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like
music,
more games that have bespoke, maybe licensed, maybe original songs that they utilize to affect emotional beats in the story or tie into like characters and plot points and stuff like that. I love games like that. I love that kind of philosophy for games. So more games like that. That's part of the reason I even played this.
Yeah, and not to drag out the point. In a world, let's ignore that the 10 out of 10 controversy happened entirely. I'll say that I love that games like this exist as well. Like that for the person who this hits, this game is there for them, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah. what was I thinking about with that recently? There was a game I was playing that was like,
I mean, dude, think about it. Every single year, there's fucking 100 quote unquote games for Impact, and we learn about the top 5 of them at the Game Awards, and they're usually games we never heard of. But for the people who loved those games, they were like that important, you know? And yeah,
that will stick with them for the rest of their lives,
right?
As one of the defining, like, this was for me titles. Yep. I guess that begs the question: do I think Mixtape will be in the games for Impact at the end of the year? I wouldn't I think so, but probably because it impacted.
I think it's crazy to think it won't be in the conversation, and I'm not saying it deserves to be, but like it definitely is going to be on that stage. I don't know if it's going to win, but like,
right,
I would bet money it's going to get a nomination.
I think Games for Impact as the category should definitely consider like cultural impact, both positive and negative and everything in between.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
They used to have a hot mess category. I'm not saying this was a hot mess, but yeah.
Right.